Okay, Chris, I thought I would put this together today and talk to you real quickly about this. I wasn't sure how to structure this. I thought, just in case you wanted to use it in one of your videos, I don't know what you know and don't know about 3D land. I assume it's nothing, and I just want to say if I'm covering stuff that you already know, my apologies. I'm not sure what of this you're aware of and what you aren't, and I'd rather cover it than not cover it. So I thought I'd show you some of this stuff. I figure sooner or later, maybe you and I will wind up working together with some people on a project. I'm hoping maybe I'll help you out on, be your 3D guy. And I figured it would be good to sort of explain some of this process. One thing I can tell you right off the bat is that there are a few different types of scans. There's usually you pick a scanner based on size. Knowing you're going to scan a boat, pretty much that puts you in laser scanner land. If you see on the screen right here, this is very similar to the scanner I have. It's a Faro, and it's good for approximately 120 meters. And so this particular one, this is a laser scanner. And I thought I'd show you here. There's a few different types that are kind of popular right now. There's one that's called a white light scanner. And white light scanners are usually for smaller objects. Typically, something under 5 or 6 feet, and you can get really incredible accuracy with these. You could figure sub-millimeter, so if you really do it well, maybe 0.2 millimeter accuracy. This one up here is called a structured light scanner up in the upper left, and structured light scanners, they are also very, very accurate, but they are for smaller objects even still. In the upper right here, this is the new flavor of scanners, and this is sort of, I guess you'd call it a metrology scanner or a reference scan, where you have a 3D scanner that's scanning the 3D scanner. And so it's like Inception, where you're traveling down the rabbit hole, and now this gives incredible accuracy to this, which then in turn gives incredible accuracy to the scan that you're scanning. And this is the latest generation. I don't have one of those yet. It's probably in my future. But the one I was going to talk to you about is a laser scan. And I thought I'd give you a little bit of a heads up on kind of how this all happens. I don't know if you've ever used the transit, but transits are used for determining angles and doing surveying. And they're really good for doing horizontal angular stuff, very accurate to within, minutes or possibly even seconds of an angle. And you'll see this dope over here that's, thank God he's not on his cell phone for once. This asshole over here is holding a height stick, and he's looking through that scope and he's seeing some number here. And by knowing that number and assuming this tripod is level and the surveyor transit is level, we can read those numbers off of there and basically triangulate points along the way on the ground that we can get a good topology map going. And there's a cool trick where if you take two of these transits and you set them up a known distance apart, and then you take a tape measure and you measure from tape measures as well, you can make almost infinitely complex shapes using that technique. And I'm sort of talking about this because it's sort of the analog equivalent of some of the stuff I'm going to be talking about. The next trip down the rabbit hole is called a theodolite. A theodolite is like a transit in that it's another surveying tool. The difference between the transit and the theodolite is that this one also includes angular change. So you can get angles the same way you can get angles around the horizontal axis. This gives you angles on the vertical axis, and then you can measure angles vertically as well as horizontally. And what we're eventually getting to is you attach these two concepts to a laser rangefinder, and you effectively have a laser scanner. So there's a few things that come up that I'll talk about, and there are a few problems. One of them is reflectivity and the Fresnel effect, and then also we have line of sight issues. So I brought up a little document here that I thought I would be able to use to explain some of this stuff. So you have on here, you have the scanner, and the scanner is sitting here, and it's got a rotating cylinder lens inside of here, and it's cut at a 45-degree angle, and it's shooting out laser beam readings from this 45-degree angled laser. So the laser comes from inside the unit, shoots out, and what happens is it gets obviously a distance back from it And it also, like a theodolite, it's also measuring its rotational axis going this way, the angle, and it's incredibly precise. They're using super, super precise encoders on these, and so you wind up where you're able to track the horizontal axis of this thing as it's rotating around as you're scanning, and you're also getting the vertical rotations of the actual lens that's spinning inside here and shooting out lasers. And it's able to capture billions and billions and billions of points. You can sort of set it to decide how much aggravation you wish to have it scan, and it can cull out a lot of points that you don't want. And so this machine is doing this. It's traveling very slowly around its horizontal axis, and it's spinning pretty quickly on its vertical axis, and it's just pulling tons of points from the sky and measuring the distance to them. If you could imagine, though, what happens is why I show this, one of the two problems that we face, and it's why I thought I'd sort of preload this so you could kind of understand how we might tackle it, is that the Fresnel effect. I mean, everybody knows Fresnels typically in that you have Fresnel lenses or Fresnels inside of a lighthouse, but the Fresnel effect exists on everything. And basically the important part on this is that any surface, if the angle gets oblique enough, it becomes a mirror. And you'll see that effect. That's why I chose this image. You'll see on the road here, it starts to become a mirror off in the distance, which is why you see that mirage. And this Fresnel effect exists on objects as well. And if I'm 3D scanning, instead of getting the laser point shooting back to me, it's going to reflect, hit something like a car or something, come back into that puddle, and then back into the eyeball of the machine, and think that the point I just shot is much further away than it is. So sometimes with laser scans, clear objects, super shiny objects, chrome objects, glass objects, they can be sometimes really difficult to shoot for that reason. And there's one other problem that we face when we're doing these kinds of scans, is that the laser can only scan what it can see. It can go around and I can set it to scan all kinds of points. Everybody's super happy. I can scan any object, and that's what I guess I'll get close to finishing with here, is that this is an object-based scanner, and so it suffers from a line of sight condition. And so anything that the laser can't see, gets kind of trash. And if you could imagine too, if like I'm scanning the cylinder, I'm also going to get that problem with the Fresnel effect at the very oblique edges of the cylinder, and I'll get a bunch of chowder and false readings here. And so I would say there's one other thing that we do to work with this, and that's why I put here, it's called line of sight fixes, where we have registration balls that sit on tripods, and they're of a known size, like 100 millimeter or what have you. And you can set these up inside of the room, and what it starts to do is it starts to register the room and not the object. So I can set up targets on the wall, I can set up these spherical ball things, and the farther apart they are and the more of them that the laser can see, it can start to say, hey, I identified a bunch of those white spheres in the scene. And then I can pick the scanner up and I can move it to another area where I'm going to start seeing the rest of the object, and it's not going to be occluded by the line of sight visibility issue. So I'll wind up picking another point, I'll scan from there, and then when I have those two scans inside the computer, I can say, here's where those white balls are in both scenes. And based on the position of those, it can register the scans to each other, where you're scanning more of the room and you're registering the balls, and that sets up the scans. And therefore I can register, honestly, like almost an infinite amount of scans, and I can get around the limitation of the line of sight, and I can wind up co-witnessing, however many scans it would wind up taking to be able to scan the boat. So I would bring registration spheres, and I'd bring the laser scanner, and we'd go around and we'd scan the boat. And with a laser scanner, you're probably talking an accuracy, give or take maybe a millimeter or two. And I'm guessing for a boat, if it's 30 feet long, that it's not even remotely going to be an issue if we're a millimeter off somewhere. So I thought I would give you the ins and outs of some of this process, because, if I come out, or maybe if it's something that interests you and you wind up doing a video about it, This way you know a little bit about what's going on under the hood, and you can sort of see how we've come from surveying instruments to the 3D scanner, and that honestly it's not much of a leap. It's really just copious amounts of data, whereas you could have done it by hand. It would just take 117 years to do the same thing. So that's what I'd wind up doing. I'd come in, I'd bring all of this stuff, I'd bring the laser scanner, and we'd get your boat done. And then that's that. And then we would have this 3D scan of your boat. I could then create 3D data from the point cloud, because the point cloud's not really useful until you convert it into data. But that's another trip down the rabbit hole I don't really want to cover for today. So I thought I'd keep it short and sweet. I know this type of shit is boring, so I didn't want to be too labored in this explanation, but I thought maybe this might help, and I don't know if this interests you at all. I can't really get a sense of where your TISM starts and stops, but I thought I'd put it out there, and then that way, if I wind up coming out to scan, you have some bit of a heads up. All right, man, that's all I got. Thanks.